Hello everyone and welcome to 100 Kubernetes Tools, Day 4. Today we're looking at ArgoCD and gitops. As always, first I'll explain why gitops is useful and why you need a tool like ArgoCD, and only after that will I jump in and show you an actual demo. Okay, so I wanted to create a diagram to really show you why gitops is useful. Now, fortunately, my fiance is a talented digital artist. Unfortunately, she was busy this morning, so I had to create this myself. You have a bunch of YAML files for your application, and you want to take these and you want to apply them to your cluster. So the obvious way to do this is to run kubectl apply, and you do that and it works well the first time, the second time, and the 1000th time. Eventually though, it starts to break down because you have many team members and you want a more structured process, and you want to review stuff before you apply it to the cluster. So eventually you set up probably a CI/CD pipeline, something like GitHub Actions or Jenkins, and you run the CI/CD pipeline and it applies these changes to the cluster. Now, that's good and that works, but it's really not the best solution for a number of reasons. First of all, you might end up having not one cluster, but many clusters. So then you have to take that CI/CD pipeline and you now need to run it against this cluster, you need to run it against this cluster, you need to run it against this cluster, and all your other clusters. Second of all, what happens if you're running this against one of the clusters, and then in the middle, there's a disconnection? Now, this job fails. It's not going to go and try and run this again and apply it again. And that's really unfortunate, and that's not the Kubernetes way of doing things. Because a core concept of Kubernetes is the concept of control loops, and the concept that every single cluster is always checking itself, and it's always looking at its desired state. Who do I want to be? And it's looking at its current state. Who am I right now? And it's doing these control loops and it's comparing itself to what it should be, and then it's applying the changes. This is why, for example, if you have a replica set that's supposed to have one pod and you delete the pod, then the pod just reappears. Because the replica set in Kubernetes notices, I want to have one pod. I no longer have it because you went and you deleted it, so I'm going to bring it back up. Now, it would be really great if we could just apply the same concept over here. Like we could say to this cluster, let's inverse the direction on these arrows. Instead of pushing stuff from here, we'll say to this cluster, you want to be this Git repo. And then this cluster will constantly run a loop where it checks, am I like this Git repo? Oh yeah, I am? Okay, cool. Am I like this Git repo? No, because there's a new change or a new commit that someone pushed. Okay, we'll go pull that right in, and I'll make changes to myself. And that way you can set up this control loop where the cluster is constantly checking whether it matches a Git repo. And you, of course, define that for all of these clusters. So all of these clusters will now go and pull from that Git repo, and they'll pull from it every 30 seconds or whatever. And they'll constantly bring themselves into line with what you defined in here. So that's obviously useful. There's one more reason why gitops and a tool like ArgoCD is useful, and that's users. Users like to do user things, meaning they like to do unexpected things that they weren't supposed to. As they say, be a winner, not a user. And you can see here, there's a person who decided that he wants to edit one of the YAML files, so he just went and edited it on the cluster itself. So now you have a YAML file or resource running on this cluster that actually doesn't match what's in Git. And if you're not using a visibility tool, shameless plug here, I developed a visibility tool that lets you see what people changed and when and correlate it to alerts. But if you're not using a tool that shows you really what changed in your cluster and when, then it can be very confusing to debug and to realize, okay, well, this cluster actually is different than all the other clusters, and it's not in line with this Git repo. And the next time that you go and you apply a change from here, then that change will just override whatever changes this person did, and maybe those changes were important, maybe they weren't. So the ArgoCD way to deal with this and the gitops way to deal with this can seem a little bit extreme, but what you actually do is when someone goes and does a change, you say, no, fuck you, and you just throw their change away because it doesn't match the Git repo. And of course you do that in those control loops where you're checking, let's say every 30 seconds. Who do I want to be? Who am I actually? And their change isn't in who you want to be, so you just override it. Okay, so that's gitops in a nutshell and why you need a tool like ArgoCD. Last up, I'll just show you a very, very quick demo of it. I'm trying to keep this under the 5-minute mark. So this is what ArgoCD looks like. You can see here all the applications running in your cluster. In this case, I have just one app that I'm controlling with ArgoCD. We have defined here the Git repository where you bring this application in from, where you look for those YAML definitions. You can have a Helm chart there, you can have YAML files, you can have scaffold stuff, maybe not scaffold actually, but you can have a whole bunch of different stuff there. And here it shows me a nice diagram of all the resources that are part of this application. It shows me the sync status. I can hit the sync button here to manually say, okay, go now and bring stuff from the Git repository and bring yourself in line. You can set it up so it does it automatically. There are a whole bunch of other features, but that in a nutshell is what is ArgoCD and GitOps and why you need a tool like that. And thank you for listening as always. Leave comments below. Let me know what you want me to cover in future videos.